This video will illustrate how our technology, supply chain purchasing, can be used for planning out the medical supplies necessary to combat the COVID-19 virus. I'd like you to note that the whole intent of this particular computer model is to make better purchasing decisions. We don't want to be in a situation where we're underbuying or overbuying so that we allocate the proper materials to all the people who need these materials. So therefore, we need to try to work together and individually only order what we need when we need it. It is a time-phase supply chain network visibility that is provided through this particular tool because of the fact that we're bucketizing our data by week, going out more than 20 weeks. It is a dashboard of all the information that you would need to make these critical decisions. As you can see, we have a demand line up at the top. We have our production or purchasing that is in this particular area here. And that can include any existing purchase orders as well as planned orders that you might want to issue in the future before you need to do it. And then we have our safety stock and our current inventory here. And this is a perpetual inventory calculation that takes our current existing inventory, subtracts the demand, and adds back any purchases that have been received. So it goes out and calculates what future inventory positions are. We also have an array of different macros, all by just clicking these buttons over here and over here, which will automate all the necessary tasks that you might need to perform in trying to do this planning. You'll note that we are looking at one material at a time or one item at a time. And the point is every item has its own set of parameters and situational types of events that are going on. So we want to be able to analyze each one individually and giving it its full attention as to what kind of constraints and variables that we have relative to this particular material. We also have graphs, and we're using colors to really highlight the problems so we're not missing anything just in the table of data. And you can see pretty dramatically here right now in this particular graph, we're going below zero, and obviously we're stocking out. And then we know when we're going to stock out, when we're going to have problems. And this is very valuable in order to try to help people understand who may not be familiar with this type of work. The value proposition of using a tool like this is that we're automating just about everything we can. All the data gathering and all the calculations are all behind the scenes. You can see we have lots of tabs of information that are underneath this, but we're doing all of our work right here on one page, and all the relevant information is brought to this page for the item that we're particularly scheduling at this time. Again, this acts like a radar. You can see going out into the future, we have time to react. And if you think about an airplane, they need time to adjust their position, or like a boat that's maybe going to crash into another boat. These things just don't happen immediately. You need time to react. You need to see that this problem is coming at you. So take a look at this and understand that we're trying to look down the road into the future and see if we expect to have any problems. If there's a supply constraint, we can put that constraint into here, and we'll see when we're going to be running out of material. And we can try to take appropriate actions with lots of lead time in order to try to fix that thing. But without that radar, with current business systems, basically what happens, you issue one purchase order, but you're blind to what's coming at you into the future. So it'd almost be like driving on somebody's bumper on the highway, and all of a sudden there's a crash occurs, and you have no time to react, and you run into the car in front of you. It also is a dynamic model. So we feed in new information at the beginning of each week. we update all the inventories, we adjust all of our demands, and we reschedule this whole thing over and over again. You can do this as many times as you want during the week, but in many cases, once a week is sufficient enough. But if you're in a high volatile situation, you can rerun this model and update your information as often as you want. The other use of this tool is just to run some scenarios. What if the demand goes up higher? What if we have a supply constraint? And you can see how you would react to that situation and pre-plan those scenarios and understand how severe it is going into the future. The other thing that we're looking at here is I want you to understand the perspective. We could set this up on an individual location, or we could set it up on an entire network, a supply chain network, whether it be just in a local area, whether it could be an extended one across the region, the country, or even around the world. We can just populate the data and it'll aggregate all of the demands, it will aggregate all the inventories, and it will plan the purchases accordingly. The other one is the test scenarios that we had mentioned before. There are many situations on an individual item basis that you might be able to go out, for example, and be able to find some materials. So let's throw in some materials here and say we were able to go out and get a couple thousand units. All right, didn't seem to make too much of a difference here. We reschedule accordingly, and let's see what we come up with for a schedule. You can see what happens here. It's scheduling out based upon this new information, and it says we're going to be buying in these quantities going out into the future. I want you to understand that we have flexibility of changing some of these parameters. So let's just say, for example, we want to change some of the scheduling parameters here. Right now we're buying in a minimum quantity of 1,000 units. Let's make this only 500. Maybe we don't want to buy that often. We're going to do it a minimum frequency of 4 times or every 4 weeks. And we're going to reschedule this thing and see what it looks like. And there we go. You can see we're buying much larger quantities. Now you may look at this and saying, I don't have the cash for buying that kind of a quantity. And that's where you would want to buy in smaller increments and be able to just buy with enough lead time. And if we knew we had a 3-week lead time, you can see what's happening here. This is when the material is needed, and this is where you need to be placing your order. So it's helping you out with all those decisions based upon what you think the current scenario is. And I want you to make one last notice here is that this is all based on Excel. And if your people have already been using Excel, whoever's going to use this model, their learning curve is going to be shortened considerably by knowing how to get around and navigate Excel.